And we are live here with you, joining you here on Variety Sports Network, the Collegiate channel here. We're here wrapping it up. We got Sweet 16 action to get here to with you a little bit. I'm Darren Breyer here from Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports Podcast. We got a lot to get into today on the show, and I'm joined here. First, before we get into my guest here, we're going to go over all the games. We'll give you a little breakdown of the Elite Eight action, some of the matchups there. But let's go over the game that just ended here. Let's go over an expert here who understands Xavier, Texas, somebody that really should understand Xavier more so than Texas. Let's go to the guest here. Come on in here. Why don't you come on, bring it out here? We got Xavier Breyer here. He is a fan of the Xavier Musketeers. He just watched the game with me. Xavier lost to Texas, son. Obviously, your name being Xavier, you were really rooting hard for them this last couple weeks. How disappointed are you at their loss today to Texas?
Pretty mad.
Yeah. What? Now let me ask you this: what was the biggest flaw that Xavier had today in this game?
Probably just not making shoot shots.
Now that is true. They definitely could not make enough shots. Now I was really frustrated with Menji. He couldn't make a basket down low, but they kept fouling people. Mm-hmm. And I heard you yelling at the TV about rebounding. Mm-hmm. Well, why were you so upset? Why were they getting out rebounded?
I don't know. It's just like they couldn't get the ball from Texas. Probably the Texans are going higher when Xavier's not trying the best.
This is true, and this is the breakdown that you only get here on VSN Collegiate. Here we get this from our 7-year-old of Xavier Musketeers fan here, right? Mm-hmm. You got to admit they did try their best. Obviously, you're frustrated with the season coming to an end. What do you think about Texas, though? They did look pretty good, son. Are you willing to give them credit for the win?
Yes, I'll give them credit for the win against Xavier.
You don't seem like you're that confident, though, in giving them credit. You seem a little gun shy there. All right, bud. Hey, you want to go inside? I love you. All right. Are you going to stay with me?
Yes.
To do the rest of it? All right. You're just going to stay with me, be the special guest. I love it. All right. Let's keep it rolling here on VSN Collegiate here. Like we said, we had Xavier, Texas. That was a good game there with it. I just think Texas is too strong. I think their scoring was obviously at high display tonight. Got Xavier very frustrated with the flagrant foul there earlier in the game. Let's go to the game, the first game of the day, the first one we watched, and the one that I was kind of specifically interested in. That was San Diego State. They end up beating Alabama in a big game. Brandon Miller really struggles for Alabama. Now he goes to the draft here. He'll be probably a top 3 pick going in there, son. San Diego State now, they match up now against, we'll get into it, they play Creighton, a really good chance to go to the Final Four. We'll see how San Diego State deals with that. The one thing I was impressed with San Diego State was how they played, how they competed defensively against Alabama. They were able to keep the game slow, but at the same time, they were able to they were able to keep Alabama from really exploding on offense. So that was the part that I was the most impressed with them. Did you see any of that Alabama game? What did you think of that? I love you said that's the breakdown. All right, so
they won the game.
They did win the game, son. That's the key to it. You sound like a college student breaking this down.
He probably won the game because he wanted to.
No, I know. That's a good point there. I do think if we're talking about for serious, I think Brandon Miller. I just think they were able to keep him off from getting into a rhythm with 3 for 16 at some point in the game, and they were able to contest most of the shots. So that's always a good part for San Diego State. And they move on to the Elite Eight, which they haven't been able to get to in a long time. So they'll have a good chance against Creighton to be able to pull that off. So we'll see how they do in that matchup here. The game after that one was Miami versus Houston. I thought this might be the game of the day. Turned out to be a good game, but not the best game in that regard. We have Miami. They move on. They defeat Houston, who they were the number 1 seed one of the number seeds in the tournament, but it just felt like the way they played Memphis a few times entering the tournament that they were a little flawed. They had the injuries there towards the end of the season, and they end up getting beat here by the ACC champs Miami to take them out. A big win for Miami. They're just clicking on all cylinders. Their coach has a real good feel when it comes tournament time. So I don't know, Xavier. I think Miami looks pretty tough to beat, my son. What do you think?
I
thought Xavier was going to end up playing Miami. I thought that was going to be the matchup here. I thought it was going to be Xavier versus Miami. So you got to be disappointed about that.
Yep.
So why don't we get on here? Let's get to our final matchup here of the game. We had Princeton versus Creighton. Now, that was the game I got to see Princeton beat Tyler's Arizona Wildcats. It was a good game. You got to see that one live. We talked about that with you. Hopefully, Tyler's listening right now and he understands that they lost. But with that said, Princeton does go down today. The Magic does end, son. They end up losing to Creighton, who does look like a legit championship team. They will match up now against San Diego State in what should be a good elite matchup. Creighton has all the makings of a good offensive team. I don't know. They got a good path to the tournament. They end up taking care of Princeton. Like I said, they should have been able to take care of like Arizona should have been able to a few rounds ago. But we get San Diego State, we get Creighton in the Elite Eight. Should be very interesting who advances from there. Now, let's go to our Elite Eight matchups. Let's go to who will be in the Final Four now. Let's make our picks, me and you. Does that sound good? All right. So we're here down to the end here on the VSA Collegiate here. Now, Xavier, before we make our picks officially, let's go to Row One Brand, who sponsors our program here at VSN. Use the code VSN15. You'll get 15% off anything in their art gallery. Maybe a Musketeers hat, maybe a jersey, maybe an art, maybe a painting, right? Something you can put up on the wall. So that's something with the fans there that they'll enjoy. So with that said, Tyler wants to say we're talking about Arizona too much. Tell him to suck it. That's what you can tell him. Tell that. You can tell him your team got eliminated earlier, buddy. Did you actually know that your coach at Xavier did coach Arizona? So that's why he's a little bit more frustrated in that regard. But with that said, we have Creighton and Princeton, like I said, matching up. Let's go to our Elite Eight, brought to you by Row One Van Brand. Xavier, what game would you want to see the most? We got Blue Jays. We got Creighton versus San Diego State. We got K-State versus Florida Atlantic. We got Gonzaga versus the Huskies. And then we got Miami versus Texas. Is there a game that you really want to see? Is it maybe Derek's Huskies and the versus Gonzaga? Yeah, Gonzaga, I think, versus the Huskies is going to be the matchup as well, especially with Timmy going against their big guys. I think that's the one I'm going to want Row One seats for. So use that code VSN15, VSP15. Like I said, you'll get 15% off them. So I think me and you are in agreement. Gonzaga versus UConn is the game to go to, right? That is the best seat. I agree. That's the Row One we want to. So, son, let's make our picks here. What do you say? We make our final picks here? Or even with Xavier out, we're going to be able to do this?
Yes.
All right. So let's go San Diego State versus Creighton Blue Jays. I'm going to take Creighton to pull it off. Now, I want San Diego State to win because they're the West Coast team. I feel like they're playing well. I feel like their guys do extra shoulder lifts. They're pretty buff in that regard. What do you think? Are you going to go Blue Jays or are you going to go San Diego State in this game?
Blue Jays.
All right, so you go Blue Jays as well. So we're both going Creighton to advance to the Final Four. What a game that would be! What a moment for Creighton to get in there to finally make it. Let's go to the game below. To me, the player of the tournament. So we're Noel from Kansas State. He had 19 assists last game versus Michigan State. Who do you like in this game? We got Michigan. We got the Kansas State. That's the purple team. Remember that said Kansas State Wildcats versus the Florida Atlantic Owls. Now, who do you got there in that matchup, son?
Kansas State.
You're going with the Wildcats as well. All right, I like that. So we'd have K-State play then the Creighton Blue Jays in the Final Four. All right, let's go to our final two games of the matchup. Let's go to the one that you thought was the one of the day. Gonzaga versus the Huskies. That's a big matchup. Obviously, Derek's a big Huskies fan here. Let's go. Who do we want to go there? We got Huskies and we have Gonzaga. We have Tim A. Can he handle the front court of Gonzaga or of UConn? Gonzaga, they seem to play at a high pace. Can UConn keep up with that? So many questions going to this great matchup. Who do you like, the Huskies or the Bulldogs of Gonzaga?
Gonzaga.
You like Gonzaga, son. That's a good choice. We're going West Coast flavor there. I like that. All right, let's get to the final game of the Elite Eight. Final say to go to the Final Four. We talked about it a little bit. Miami of Florida, right? Versus, the Texas Longhorns. They look very good, son. They look probably like the best team. They are the highest seed remaining in the tournament. Who do you like, Miami of Florida to advance to the Final Four or the Texas Longhorns?
Texas.
We are going with the Texas Longhorns. I can respect that they look darn good and they did knock out the people on your hat right now. So that is very understandable in that regard. All right, Xavier. With that said, I think we got through the games we wanted to talk to. I'm sorry about your Xavier Musketeers going down. Any last thoughts you want to say to the people out there? Any last final thoughts to Xavier? You got to see a couple of games. They gave you a good run. Any final words?
I still have my second best team, Gonzaga, still in the tournament.
So you're
and Gonzaga's not eliminated the whole time.
Yeah, but you got Xavier eliminated. So you're just saying you have another team you can just go right to?
But I want to go to Xavier College.
Well, you should have a leg up that you have the name Xavier in that regard. So, son, that was a good podcast. Your first time being on here in the VSN Collegiate. You're a little young, but you know what? They might take you someday to college like that. I appreciate you jumping on. Thank you. We'll do it again maybe tomorrow.
Yep.
All right. That's Xavier Breyer there. It's good. Xavier, thanks for jumping on. Say bye.
Bye.
Peace.